Hello everybody. Today we are going to do a new PC build that originally was supposed to be upgrading only a few components. We're going to be using components that were purchased from sales online in August of this year, 2022. Let's take a glimpse at the individual components and then we'll go into some more detail about them. We have the 360mm EVGA closed-loop CPU cooler, the EVGA Supernova 1600 T2, the titanium power supply, the extended ATX Z690 Classified EVGA motherboard, and the Corsair RGB 5000X case. And to finish up our build, we're going to add 3 980 Pros for our storage. We're going to have 64 gigs, 2 times 32 gigs of Corsair Dominator Platinum RGB DDR5 memory, and an Intel Core i9-12900K processor. This PC build was supposed to be a motherboard, CPU, and faster Gen 4 M.2 upgrade, but turned out to be much more. My journey from my upgrade first started with trying to pick out a motherboard that would support a 12th gen Intel processor and still support DDR4 so I can recycle my RAM. But then I ran across EVGA and their extremely great sales they have right now. So I picked up a Z690 Classified, which then kind of threw my entire plans down the drain because this motherboard supports only DDR5 and it is a large motherboard, EATX form factor. Luckily for me, the majority of the components were all on extreme discounted sales. A lot of the parts I got from EVGA. Some of them I actually previously bought a month, 2 months ago when they were on sale, and they've been sitting around waiting to be put in a new system. Let's take a look at some of these online websites that had great prices on the components I used in this build. As of the end of August, the EVGA Z690 Classified on the EVGA website is still on sale for $299.99, which is $330 off its MSRP, and the sale might last on a while longer. The EVGA 360 CPU cooler is also still on sale for $89.99, but this sale might end when the stock runs out. The EVGA Supernova 1600 T2 titanium modular power supply is on sale for $349.99, but it was on sale a month ago for $259.99, so always keep your eyes open for a better deal. If you're thinking about upgrading to the highest end NVIDIA 49 series power-hungry video cards, a 1600 watt PSU future-proofs you for that upgrade. We opted to purchase the Corsair iCUE RGB 5000X mid-tower ATX case, and on the Corsair website it has an MSRP of around $215, so we went looking for a better deal elsewhere. One of our favorite sites is Newegg.com, which we have no affiliation with, but we like them due to they have multiple various sellers, a ton of PC peripherals and components, and seem to always have items on sale when you need them. Today we see the 5000X on sale for $145, but just last week it was on sale for $129 with an additional $20 rebate code, therefore making it $109, which is technically half off the MSRP, so as a rule of thumb, always keep your eyes open for the best prices. One more item to keep your eyes on is the fact that there are multiple sellers on this website, similar to other sites like Amazon, and thus the prices on the same page for the same product vary, so pick the best deal. This particular page has the 5000X listed from $145 up to $268, so ensure you pick the best deal. Processors are usually hard to find significant discounts on, but when a new generation is coming out soon, such as the 13th generation Intel chips next month, you can find good deals. If you don't mind taking a slight risk to get a deeper discount, look at sites like eBay and even Craigslist to pick up that processor you're looking for. DDR5 RAM is currently expensive since it's the new kid on the block, and our choice of Corsair Dominator Platinum RGB 5200 MHz C40, especially in a 64GB configuration, the two 32GB sticks, is on the higher end in price. But you can find slight savings by shopping various sites. We chose 64GB in a 2-stick configuration due to the motherboard supports 4 slots and the processor can support up to 128GB. Therefore, we future-proof ourselves by being able to maximize our RAM in the future just by adding 2 more 32GB sticks. There are definitely less expensive options in the same RAM configuration, but for us this time, we thought quality and look should play a factor, and hence our choice of this RAM. During the unboxing of the motherboard, I realized that I'm in my boring engineering talkative mode, so I decided to compress the video and just explain what's going on in the unpacking. When you first unpack it, of course you come across a little card in the front that is your quick start guide. Behind it is the accessory box that has in it your SATA cables, your Pro Belt connector, which you can check your voltages across the motherboard, your case badge, 3 thermal pads for the M.2s, a USB flash drive to flash your motherboard with, and the antennas for the Wi-Fi connection. And first thing you notice when you pull the motherboard out is it is heavy. There are plenty of reviews online about this motherboard, so I won't get into the details of all the cool things it has. One of the things I did like, it does have a nice back plate that adds stability and thickness to it, and it's just well built. Alright, once again, I decided to compress the video to kind of minimize the boredom of watching and unpacking. The one thing when I was unpacking this EVGA cooler is it didn't specify whether or not it supported the RGB Z690, the newest Gen 12 processor configuration. So as I was opening it, that's going to be one of the first things I'm going to go check for to make sure it does come with the supporting hardware. Otherwise, I'll have to order it separately. Looking good. And what do you know? Intel 1700. So it does come with the appropriate hardware to mount the newer processors. So speeding up the rest of the process of unpacking the CPU cooler, I slowly came across and noticed that when I got the radiator out, it was nice to know that as soon as I pulled off that cardboard covering, it had the 3 fans already attached to the radiator. Normally I'm used to like Corsair or other all-in-one CPU coolers where you have to attach the fans yourself, and they usually give you multiple mounting bolts for doing that, but this was nice to have it all in one. Looking at the unpacked CPU cooler, for $89 you can't go wrong. You know, EVGA does build a quality part. It does have all the extra added hardware if for some reason you were going to put it in a different system, a different Intel or an AMD system. It has that hardware you need for it. Moving on to the case, it has a lot of glass. Like I said, left, top, front, and right side, or the back I should say, all have glass panels on them, so if you're going to put it in a room on top of your desktop and it's bright, you can have a lot of reflection. You might not like that. For me, I put it under my desk, so I am just okay with it. First thing with doing your build is removing all the glass panels off this case. That way, there's no way I'll break them. Next thing that was kind of cool about this case, it has in the back a little cable cover port that exposes the back of the motherboard tray and your 3 SSD holders, and on the bottom you got some of the old 3.5-inch hard drive, 2 of them holders right next to the power supply. But with the power supply we're using, we're going to have to remove that because of the size. The inside of the case has plenty of room for mounting extra fans. You got the 3 RGBs in the front, you got a nice cable cover on the back, and this plastic piece right here you can swap out when you're going to use the 3 fans behind that cable cover. One thing we did notice by looking at that cable cover is the EATX mounting screws are actually behind it. So in order for the EATX motherboard to fit, we'll have to slide that over. So we'll have to take some measurements. In order to mount the actual extended ATX motherboard in this case, this cable cover had to come off, and it was done from the back side where I put my finger on the top and bottom there. There's 2 screws, and there's 2 captive screws that are actually on the inside. And it was much easier if you have yourself a short Phillips screwdriver in order to get those other 2 captive screws out. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible with your thumbs. Putting this motherboard in the case was very easy. The back plate helped protect it as I was putting it in to the case. And it's as simple as putting down and sliding over because the I/O plate is attached to the actual motherboard, and the case has a little stud that helps align it. All I do next was just check to make sure all the Screw holes were aligned and then put the screws in. Next is installing the M.2 drives, and to do that I needed to remove the heatsink, which was held on by 2 screws on the right side, the red arrows, and 3 kind of nuts on the left side. Removing the plate reveals 3 nicely aligned M.2 slots, but I still have to install the actual standoff screws and nuts. I always have to remember that the standoff screw is the screw nut screw configuration. Following the installation guide proved useless because step 2 says remove the heatsink screws, and in step 5 use them to mount your M.2 drives, which is totally wrong. I goofed up the first 980 Pro installation by putting the 980 Pro in first and then using the stud screw combo to hold it down. Not realizing that I forgot, I gotta put the screw nut combo in first and then unscrew the M.2 mounting screw. So when I finally figured that out, put the screws in first and then back out the screw that's on top of the nut, then put the M.2s in and then mount them. EVGA made the installation pretty easy with just peeling off the thermal pad stickers off the back since they're already mounted, and then putting the thermal plate back onto the motherboard with the 2 screws on the right and the 3 closed nuts that are on the left, and then I was done. With the motherboard mounted in the case and having the cable cover here in my hand, I was able to determine real quickly that it would not be feasible to actually be able to mount it. The mounting hole for the bottom is actually behind the motherboard. So in order to get that in place, I have to slide it in from the front, taking out all the fans. The other problem is the SATA ports, they stick up a little bit too far. The thickness of this is 20.7, so it's about 20.7. But the distance to the actual back plate where it mounts is just about 21. Therefore, verifying with those measurements, the cable cover plate would not fit. But I didn't stop there. I had to actually go and test it out myself. Okay, engineering curiosity got the best of me, so I ended up taking off the front fans so I can slide this through the front and then try to align it. Yes, you can slide it behind behind the motherboard on the very bottom, but if I can't really push it, because the SATA cable ports sit a little bit higher, I'm pretty much bowing the entire thing, and then I'm also covering the one USB-C front port cover. So just had to try to make it fit, and this kind of just confirms, through the measurements that it's just not going to work. I finally got to unpacking the massive 1600 watt power supply. And just like every time you unpack a power supply, it comes with a box that has all your cables, a cable bag, and the main power cables. I think this one also came with a power on adapter so I could test it without having to actually plug into a motherboard. And of course, here is the massive 1600 T2. It has plenty of modular ports, making it future-proof, and since it is 1600 watts, it's plenty of power for your future builds. I just wanted to show real quickly in comparison that this power supply is so long that the 3.5-inch drive caddy that was on the other side I had to remove because there's definitely no room. It just takes up so much space and I have no way of routing the cables at all. The secondary problem with this power supply is the eco mode button is located in the far left front corner, and inside this case there is actually no way to get access to that once you have all the cables in, so I just keep eco mode off. I try to use the minimal amount of cables, so I use the standard motherboard power, 2 CPUs. I'm putting 2 PCI Express power cables for a future video card. SATA, I need 2 sets of SATA. I think there's three hookups on each one. Need them for the existing fans. I got the fan controller and the fan lighting. Plus, I want to add some extra SSDs in the future. I'll need those extra power plugs. And the thicker, unique power cable that you need for the 1600 watt power supply. is different than regular 3-prong power cable. I then mounted the CPU cooler bracket to the back of the motherboard and then the EVGA Z690 mounting screws on the front, denoted by the red and black arrows here. Then I opened up the CPU retainer bracket and then ensured that I put the CPU in the correct way where the arrows matched before I actually closed the CPU retention bracket. After putting the CPU in, I decided which direction do I want the radiator to be, with it to the left or do I want it to the right. For me, I actually prefer it, the actual lines to be towards the back, just because it gives me more room on the right side where the RAM's at and anything I want to put in the future in the front. Whereas in the back, it comes back down. It's easier just to loop around and you're not really blocking anything, and it goes straight on the CPU. Next, installing RAM, I chose two 32 gig chips of the Corsair Dominator Platinum RGB. This is the DDR5 5200 megahertz version. So, according to the motherboard, I'm going to be putting it in slots 2 and 4. There's basically 1, 2, 3, and 4, and if you're running 2 channels, put in slots 2 and 4. Okay, pretty much all the basics are done. RAM's installed, CPU cooler, SSDs, which are actually M.2s, and the power supply. So technically this is fully built. I noticed one thing when I was hooking up the Dominator Platinum RGBs. These are pretty tall because they have the heat sink and the lights built into them. I'm used to, just put your thumbs on the sides and push them in, but I realized as I was doing that, these things are so tall that it actually wobbles a lot back and forth, so it could damage your actual socket. So I actually stopped doing that and just popped one in at a time, each corner, and that seemed to work a lot better. So that was the only kind of goofiness I had there with that installation. Now going on, I'm going to go on to cable management, flip it over, and start putting cables, routing, and I got to put the fans back in the front. I took out earlier to see if I can get the little cable guard in, which we realized we can't do with this motherboard. ATX, yes, this one, extended ATX, just does not work. So, I'm going to go on the next one. Well, now comes the final moment of truth. All the wires are hooked up. I'm going to power it on and press the power button and wait and see if I actually get a post to the BIOS. This is always the scary part every time you do a build, when you're waiting for that, BIOS to kick in, so you ensure that, hey, I made sure everything was wired correctly. And lucky for me, Z690 popped up and bingo, got access to the BIOS. Therefore, everything was properly installed, and now I just gotta start cleaning up the case and add some extra fans. I eventually cleaned up all the cable management, got my RTX 3090 out of my old system, put it in. I scrounged up 3 extra RGB fans to fill up those locations on the backside. And here we have the build as it was meant to be. It actually turned out looking a lot better than I thought it would. As you can see from these pictures with the glass panels back on, yes, it does have a lot of reflection in a bright room. So, lucky for me, where I'm going to put it underneath my desk, I don't have to worry about that. It's going to be nice and dark and not that much reflection. And one of the reasons for the PC upgrade was to take advantage of the 980 Pro fast speeds, and look there. Got the 6924 megabits per second sequential read. Not so much as the write with only 5168, but that's what I was looking for. As I stated previously, I put my computer underneath my desk, and as you can see, I don't have that much problem at all with reflections on the glass. I can see clearly all the nice brightly colored LEDs inside, and it actually looks kind of good in that little darkness. Just ignore the cables and cluster around, because this is real world office clutter. Hey, this is our first video, and if you liked it, please hit that like button and help us out by hitting that subscribe button, and Jenga the Space Kitty will appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what you like and dislike, and thank you for watching this video.